we don't have to jump in.
No. How are you today? How you feeling?
No, but seriously, like
Seriously, what are you listening to right now?
what this song? To be honest, I got it from my tattoo artist.
Okay, what is
that she
it?
posted it on her
Sade?
store.
No.
I do love,
I love
Sade. Yeah.
I loves me some Sade, yeah.
Yeah, that is something I would be listening to. But this is called let me see. Amanati?
Amanati.
Pythia? Is that how you pronounce that? By
Pythia? Amanati by Pythia?
See, I knew
Wow.
that we're gonna do a little Spanglish here.
Welcome to another episode of Free Association Over Coffee. I'm so glad you guys can be with us today. And today we have a really beautiful, wonderful special guest by the name of Amanda Chaparro.
Thank you.
She's an amazing young lady who is professional, obviously, and psychologist by trade in the schools. She's fantastic. She's a wonderful human being. And I asked her to come in basically because I think that you have such a wonderful story to tell. And I want you to relax, just to be comfortable and to be yourself.
This is breath work happening right now.
Fantastic. This is good. And this is what it's about. It's just having a conversation as we're having some coffee, because this coffee is really good.
Let me tell you, this coffee, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
You make good coffee.
Thank you.
Usually the typical café con leche, just a tiny bit of milk. And I know all the real baristas out there must be like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
Trust me. I know.
This is
like,
years of academy
I have
training.
a friend, by the way. This is free advertising here, or giving just like promo, but Arnaldo, he is a barista in New York. And trust me, he would put me on like...
Gotta try this.
Yes, but the black coffee that you prepared, I really like it.
Enjoy. And this is why. I think it creates the mood. This is what it's about, right? We have a cup of coffee, we relax. And what do we do when we have a cup of coffee? We just sit down and we talk about whatever comes to mind. Then nothing is scripted. We're really being free association. I want you to be yourself and just to discuss what you would like to discuss, right? Today we can, and it's up to you, right? Yeah. Okay?
Yeah. Like we usually do. Our conversations usually are meaningful. Usually they're deep. But at the same time, we do have fun and laugh. Because that's what life is about, right? You can't be too serious.
Life is about finding moments of happiness.
Yes, yeah.
And this is a really beautiful moment, too. Just to be able to chill, relax here, and be able to just have a conversation that allows other people to listen to and be able to get something from it. Yeah. And this is the premise of what we're trying to do, okay? So I want you to feel comfortable, and you want to talk a little bit about yourself? You want to give a little background?
I mean, where do you want to start? Can you ask me some questions?
Okay,
what does the audience want to know?
What do you do for a living?
I am a school psychologist. This is actually my first year in the field. I am super excited. I've been excited. I'm really happy I chose a career that it doesn't feel like a job to me. Mm-hmm. It really feels more like a form of a service, especially with the children.
Right.
Most of my experience through my graduate, my master's degree in Puerto Rico. By the way, I'm from Puerto Rico, Vega Baja, en la casa. Okay, if you guys do not know, Vega Baja is where Bad Bunny is from. Oh. I'm just saying, just to give you an idea. And if you know, I'm from Puerto Rico.
You have a reputation to maintain. We understand.
I'm pretty sure you too. Like, where are you from?
I do.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Dominican Republic.
But where?
It's a beautiful town called Jarabacoa.
Okay, so anybody known from Jarabacoa?
There's a bachata singer from Jarabacoa, and I don't know his name, but in every one of his songs you hear him say Jarabacoa, but I don't remember his name. I should know that.
Well then,
I'll investigate.
Either way, where are you from? Also Patterson, New Jersey, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So represent. Mm-hmm. During my experience in my master's degree, getting my master's in school psych, my cases usually were from elementary. And so it's a coincidence that I'm also working my first year in the field with an elementary school.
Right. That's
So, yeah, I've always been drawn to provide the service of mental health. I really enjoy counseling. I mean, you know me.
good. Yes.
I'd rather be counseling all day if I could. And yeah, so I really enjoy. Not the opportunity if I were to work with middle school or high school, I would be open to it. But right now, the kids are
They're
amazing.
awesome.
They are.
They are wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the work that you do is really changing people's lives.
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's really wonderful work. I think it's being in this field, I think is one of the best things that we can do, because we're impacting not just one child, we're impacting families,
Right.
which is good.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you, you're here. What is it that you think is let's talk a little bit about some of your relationships, if you don't mind, right? Let's talk about your relationship to your dad, for example.
My relationship with my dad, right now, it's where I want it to be.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I think we've grown a lot. It's not been perfect, but I don't think any relationship is perfect, right?
Right.
I think that's in anything, but it has grown. So I
Wonderful.
think that's where I'm at right now.
just to let you know that in all of our relationships, it's what's considered a perfect imperfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no perfection, right? This because we're evolving. So all of our relationships are constantly evolving. We are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents are changing. Our partners are changing. It's a constant evolution of change.
Right.
So we can't be in a permanent. If we had a permanent state, that would actually stifle the growth.
Exactly.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it all starts with the individual relationship with oneself. So if you don't have a relationship with yourself, if you don't even know yourself to begin with,
Right.
then that is when the stagnation begins.
Which is true. So to know thyself is
To heal thyself.
Is to heal thyself, right?
And heal thyself is through growth, transformation, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think that applies in terms of, obviously we're mature adults now, right? So we have relationships in our lives that have formed us also, right? And in this case with your father, this has been a process of formation over time, right? And you're at a good place with your dad now, which is fantastic, right? How do you think he perceives where you are in your life in terms of your life, your career, specifically your growth as a person? Because now you're an adult.
To be honest, and not to make this up, I truly believe that my dad is really proud of me
That's wonderful.
This time.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure there are others he wasn't. But honestly, because we go through trials and how do you pronounce
Tribulations.
exactly?
Trials and tribulations.
It's life, right? We go through experiences where, whether as much as our parents want to protect us and prevent us from falling, but again, when we were a child, you had to crawl and fall a few times in order to learn how to walk.
Of course.
And so, as much as the parents may fear their children to repeat either their same mistakes or just other threats that the environment and the world have, honestly, it's inevitable, because you just have to give them the right tools, right? And the best thing that you can do, I believe, is to try to lead by example. Right. As much as you can. And you're not perfect, so give yourself grace in the process. And my line of thought kind of like broke off, but basically just like that's how you'll grow, right? Through those errors and through those ¿cómo se dice? Fracasos.
Some failures, right? Mistakes that we make.
How you get to grow and be successful in the long run, right? So, even though you just gotta let them go, with the kids. Sometimes you just gotta let us go through those trials and tribulations and
Right.
and the experiences of life,
Right.
whether you don't want them, and then just support,
Right.
in the process, like be there for them. And then that's how eventually we'll get there.
Don't you think that every one of us goes through those
Everybody, yeah.
growing pains?
Yeah.
We make mistakes, and the people that love us support us during those difficult times. That's a normal process. I mean, that happens to everyone that I know, myself included, and every one of my relationships as a parent, as a husband, as a son, as a brother. That happens with every one of my relationships. It's a constant ability to grow from them. And not to, I think what you're saying is also not to be too harsh on yourself, not to beat yourself up for being imperfect.
Right.
Right?
Right,
That's a
right.
critical point, I think, for us. Right?
We're very hard on ourselves, a lot.
Yeah.
But then again, everything stems, not everything, but mostly a lot of things stems from either our childhood,
Right.
that mechanism, defense mechanism, or trauma response.
Right, right.
If it's not, I wouldn't say treated, but at least, when you go through a trauma, it's a wound, right? And if you don't attend that wound and take your time to heal, because healing takes the time, if you don't attend that healing wound, then it's going to repeat itself, right? It's going to reopen from every trigger, from every, just like any experience that reminds you of that first experience from the beginning.
Right.
But once you acknowledge that part of yourself, then you can start knowing the healing. And it's not that it's like you're gonna be healed forever, but you know yourself more,
Right.
so therefore you carry yourself accordingly, right? I think the
Right.
goal is to have good character at the end.
Right. No, I
You
think
can
that's great.
you can say a lot of things, but you always want to be accountable.
Right.
So the relationship with yourself is vital, right? And that's going to reflect in your relationships with everyone else.
Right.
That's
That's
the
it.
best thing you
Yeah.
can do. Just work on yourself, and it's going to reflect. It
That's
will.
an excellent point. I think that's a point that you have to have that self-love. You got to have that self-care.
I'm in that stage right now. I just recently went through an experience where it was a learning experience. Everyone has one,
Right.
right? By the way, I am recently divorced.
Okay.
So, and I'm 32. So for those who can identify for my generation, yeah, so I'm going through that healing process right now. And the difference between the me now going through that experience, wow. I just want people to know that even though we go through hard experiences, whether it may be through a divorce or somebody passes away, during the pandemic, after the pandemic, I mean, you name it, we all go through it, right? And there's more to come. So better be prepared. We're just getting started.
There are a lot of roadblocks to
You
growing.
know, and that's life, right?
Yeah.
So once you, like, maybe in the moment, the storm, right? We see it
Yes.
as a storm. We see it as a nightmare. But then as long as you maintain faith, I'm sorry, right? Here, I believe everybody should have at least a spiritual system. I don't care what you want it to be, whatever you resonate the most, right? Once you have that faith, nothing can go wrong, because as long as you have that, everything's gonna be all right. Like Bob Marley. Everything's gonna be all right.
Right.
That's kind of like faith, everything's gonna be all right. And
How-
so if
how-
you keep that, yeah.
I think that's a phenomenal point.
Yeah.
In the most difficult days, in the most difficult time, in the midst of our storms, no, you're right. We got to have a sense of hope in the midst of the darkness that we're going through, whatever the case may be. And that sense of faith usually comes through some degree of suffering. whatever that may be.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that in a minute, but what I just want to end up saying that after that storm and you have that faith of everything's going to be all right, or like we say in Spanish, después de la tormenta llega la calma. So
the quiet after the storm.
Right.
Yes, there's
so
a calmness after
the
the
calm
storm.
after the storm, exactly. Right. Just have faith of that calm is coming, and you can even be calm in the middle of the storm. And that's what's going to help you get out of the storm quicker. I was raised close to the beach in Vega Baja. So from my family, there's like my ancestors or like
Sure.
my family members,
from your ancestry, your past.
Not my past, but like my grandfather, my great grandfather, they're both fishermen.
Your heritage just comes from
that's
there.
That's what. But yeah, we and they always told us that like once you're in the ocean or like in the waves, or even if you're a surfer, they always tell you like most likely you can get wiped out by the waves, but in those moments you have to be calm, because if you're not calm you will drown. That's a fact. So I apply that to my life experiences.
That's a great metaphor.
Yeah,
that is a good metaphor for life.
Seriously.
Do you know that when someone is actually drowning, right, and the lifeguard goes or someone goes to save someone from drowning, because they're so afraid and panicked, they're basically they're anxious, they're afraid, they're out of control. So they actually have to go underneath, pull them by their ankles, and then as the person comes down, they get startled and there's a pause, right, because they think they're drowning. And then the person that's saving them comes up, grabs them by the shoulders, and then brings them to shore to safety.
I didn't know that.
Right? So that's a technique, because when we are in the midst of storms, sometimes we feel that we panic, and then that's when we actually make fatal mistakes out of fear. What your grandfather said is, no, you got to be calm, because that's where you actually have to reflect and think and pause instead of reacting to the storm immediately or to the situation of danger, where you can think clearly. But it's difficult to do that, but that's a phenomenal metaphor for life.
Yeah, and it can all be applied in psychology as well. Fight or flight, right?
Exactly.
Fight or flight, our trauma responses. Fight or flight in the sense of there is un elemento,
imminent danger. There's
an imminent danger, a threat to your life, your trauma. It's either fight or flight or freeze, right? Exactly. Those are usually our responses. And in those moments, you're not calm.
Right.
So what would be the best way to calm or to respond instead of react to those responses of either fight, flight, or freeze, right? Mm-hmm. You want to pause, take a moment to breathe, calm the nervous system, because you're in a sympathetic state, right? Exactly. Fight or flight is sympathetic state. You're in an alert. Right.
You're expecting danger.
Right. But in order for you to feel safe or feel grounded, in order to respond better, you have to do that. You have to calm down through breath work. Is the most way to go. Best thing to do. One of the best practices. And that's what we do in meditation, right? That's another thing that we can talk about. But in the moment, right, you want to breathe out slowly. That would automatically calm your nervous system.
Right.
So you can just do that. And then once you calm down and you're at the peace after the storm, right, you can think better. You can respond better instead of just reacting, right? Or just being an automatic response, right?
Right. And think of that in terms of relationships, right? Because that's a phenomenal metaphor as we reflect on it, as we're processing, just thinking about it. But in the midst of the storm of a relationship, when situations occur, almost like a knee-jerk reaction, the automatic reaction is to get into that fight or flight, and then it actually destabilizes us. And it allows us to that's where we're learning, one, you don't have control of another person in the relationship. If something happens, and it's not you who's initiating that action, well, your reaction is based on what you want to respond to and how you want to respond to. And that's where we have a sense of peace, because you realize, well, I don't control that person's actions.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that that's actually a very good way to see all of our relationships. We don't control our relationships. We are in relationships. It's like being on the wave of the ocean. That's what we're doing. We're riding out the relationship. We don't control the sea. It's a good metaphor.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So right now you're at a place where you actually have a sense of inner peace. You're kind of you're in this space that you're actually in the midst of your calm, moving and transitioning into another aspect of your life.
Well, that's part of the healing process. Like, again,
Right.
like I said before, healing is not quick. It's not something that you can take a pill and just be healed. It's sometimes these things that we're healing from come from years and years of acting, thinking, feeling, and responding the same way. It's called automatic, behaviors. It's stored in our subconscious,
Right, which
right?
could come from early trauma.
Early
Right.
trauma,
In our as children,
children, or experiences after your
Correct.
childhood as well, like
Right.
the pandemic or Hurricane
Sure.
Maria, like something like that.
or loss of a loved one, or an accident.
Correct.
Sure.
So
Life happening, events.
when you say, if I am in already at peace, I try to maintain it. That's where I'm from, because it takes so much that you're healing from, right? To behave better, to be more accountable, to be healthy mentally, to
Right.
work on your emotional health, to work on your spiritual health, to work on your physical health, financial. It's hard to maintain that balance, right? So, but as long as you have that, then I think you're always going to transform. You're always going to be in a growth, in a state of growth.
So that balance, which goes back to that sense of faith, is that to come back to equilibrium, like to balance,
Correct.
to stability.
Yes.
So you're looking at emotional balance, mental balance, psychological balance, spiritual balance, financial balance, stability that allows you to flow,
Right.
to have a sense of flow.
Because too much of anything,
will tilt you over to off center,
yeah, and
Right.
it's toxic, right?
and it's toxic.
If you're too good, tú no puedes ser ingenuo.
But you can't be genuine.
You could be prone to be the victim, right, of
Right.
an abuser,
right, or you're not
or too
seeing-
passive, right?
Right.
Or if you're too aggressive on the other side,
Right.
right? So, and it's like everything. So yes, I think balance is the key, right? Because you have good thoughts, you have negative thoughts, you have pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings,
Sure.
and they all serve for a purpose. Because back in the day when our brain wasn't as developed, right, we needed fear in order to survive in the Amazon or whatever,
Sure.
or whatever the nature throws you,
The
right?
predators coming.
Right, our reptilian brain.
Right.
And then it grew to the limbic brain, right? Our
Right.
midbrain, where our emotions are stored.
We evolved. Right.
And then now we have the prefrontal cortex, where we, think,
Higher
plan,
thinking.
our personalities.
Right.
So,
But it's interesting the point that you make, right? In the midst of all that,
yeah.
when we have some type of trauma, it's also in our reptilian brain, right? And although we evolve and we become adults, we also have those emotions that still play a lot of, they influence the way that we behave, the way that we think. So we create cognitive errors. We perceive things how we want them to be, but not necessarily as they are, because we're creating a world that is suitable to our perception, and perception becomes reality. But it's also hard to see other people who they are if I perceive them to be not what they are, but what I want them to be.
Because
right?
they have their own reality and their own perceptions and
And
their
they're
own
perceiving
being
you,
and their own.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you just try to understand the person, right? Be empathetic. Get to. the more you get to know yourself, the more you can know somebody else, right?
True.
Um,
But relationships then have to be really difficult based on that. Because for me to truly be able to understand the other, I have to understand myself as much as possible. So I have to
Yeah.
have self-knowledge, some level of self-mastery and self-awareness.
yeah,
Right?
just accept the good and the bad.
Right.
Some people don't want to accept the bad. I mean, maybe at that moment when that bad thing, in that moment of trauma, that was the best thing for you to do,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Fight mode, right?
Right.
Some others were a different response.
Right.
So accept the good too. Like, again, there's good and there's bad. There's light and there's darkness. It's keeping that balance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Accepting both, right? We always want to achieve for more and evolve to better, intelligent, and more spiritually evolved. That's the goal, just to keep going, right? That, and not also it's difficult. This is because this is our deep conversations that we usually have, but at the same time, enjoy life. This is not a race, right?
Right.
Just wait for
It's-
divine timing. Everything,
Right.
just trust. Also, again, with that spiritual system, right? It's a huge component. A huge component. This is one of the most important. If you don't have spiritual system, then where are you going?
Right. That's a phenomenal point you're making, right? Because that framework, that spiritual framework that you learn in the midst of some of the most difficult times that we're hurting or even being happy, is to understand that there's a divine plan. It's difficult to understand that in the midst of your trials and tribulations and storms, because somehow we don't think that that's not a blessing in our eyes. We think it's a curse. We don't see it as, oh, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be going through right now for me to grow as a human being.
Yeah.
None of us says that. We're like, this sucks. This is horrible. I don't want to go
I'm
through this. Nobody likes suffering and pain, right?
Why did I put myself in this situation?
How did I get here from there, right?
Like, I thought it was smart.
I thought I had insight. I had good judgment.
I thought I was doing the inner work. Sometimes you even think about that. I think I was doing the inner work. I was supposed to get my blessing.
Right.
It's like,
But
no,
you're
wait for your blessing.
But this is
You have to go
interesting.
through this first.
Right. So, but what you're saying is that by walking in faith, you can see that these trials and tribulations are part of the blessing if you see it from a divine grace perspective.
Always, yeah.
Tell me how that works for you. What is it? Where are you spiritually? What is your relationship to your faith? What is that for you? What is faith for you? How would you define faith?
I just told you earlier, everything's gonna be all right. Seriously, that's how
I love
that's
that.
I love music. Music is healing, right?
Yes.
So I be quoting lyrics out there just to describe how I feel. Like if I could use a, how do you call it, a beam, like a box, like a radio.
Like a radio.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just play out the music how I feel.
Oh, your
How do you explain that?
your particular set of music just for you.
Yeah, I would be literally like a radio station. I would just put
song
my
after song.
yeah. That's
your
how
own,
it.
your own list.
Yeah,
Right.
like. How is my spiritual system? Let me describe it. I love Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror.
That's beautiful.
That's the best
Yeah.
way to explain in a simple way of working on yourself and being accountable. It, like, again, we talked about this before as well. Working on yourself, what that means. If you heal yourself, then you will heal and everybody around you. And if everybody works on themselves, then the collective consciousness, like everybody, there is goodness out there, even though we're
Yes.
seeing a lot of bad things. But shift your perspective. Don't keep yourself on a depressive state of mind, because depression is three things. Like, depression is based on the CBT, right? Aaron Beck. Negative vision of yourself, negative vision of others, and
Right.
negative vision of the future. So if we're always on a state of mind, man, this world is just getting worse by the minute.
Right.
And even though it kind of does look that way, it's tough times that we're living. I
Right.
really you guys, I really like, not envy, but like you guys had one of the best generations, but still, like, there is still goodness out there. So shift your perspective, because if you know that you're good, then isn't that faith enough for you to be like, I'm an example of goodness, so there is goodness out there.
That's
Be an
true.
example. Man in the
Yes.
mirror. That again, man in the mirror. Work on yourself. Look at yourself. Are you doing good? Being accountable?
Right.
Are you okay? And if you made a mistake and you've done, hey, forgive yourself. Like, it's okay.
We're
Like, just,
human. Yes.
yeah, try to forgive. We're really hard on ourselves. Just forgive yourself and then just work on it. Tomorrow's another day.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know,
Completely. I totally hear what you're saying. And
graceful.
yes. No. And it's true. It's one is to learn to heal yourself. One is to be gentle with yourself. One is to see that by you being good to yourself and really literally taking care of yourself, the self-care, whether it's, on every level, mental, physical, emotional, in every sense of the word, you will also attract positive energy and positive people.
Yes.
That's very critical. Because,
I've seen that lately.
right.
When you start removing people who don't add to your life,
right.
that are not, because again, once you start working on yourself and knowing yourself, the good and the bad, what you want, like for example, my goal in life is not to have a bunch of money or anything. Of course we need money, but
Sure.
my goal is to have peace and serenity, joy, obviously health, right?
Balance,
Right. If
harmony.
I'm in that state all the time, oh my God, just imagine my house, just the nurturing. You know when you're close to your grandma and you just have that energy of like, oh, I could just sleep here, like
Right.
that nurturing energy,
Yeah.
and just like loving energy from grandma. That's the energy that I want to emit. But in order to emit, I have to become.
Right, and that the beautiful what you said before is very true.
So
You have received that. For you to know that that exists is because it's already within you and you have been given that. Your grandmother and many other people in your life have given you tremendous unconditional love. That in and of itself tells you that in the midst of what we're going through, you are never alone. Things are going to be all right because you're not alone. We're not a one-person show. This is like a whole opera. This is a whole orchestra. And this is the beauty of actually being surrounded by people that give you unconditional love, because it confirms for you that they love you because you're imperfect, because no one is. And that love that they share with you is an affirmation for you to say, it's okay. I'm human, I'm imperfect, and I'm evolving and becoming more. You're becoming a more complete, self-actualized individual. That's a beautiful approach.
And I just want to say, it doesn't have to be a grandma.
No,
you
it
know,
could be
I was just an
anybody.
example,
For you,
but
it's your
it
grandma.
would be
Yes.
like, or it could be, anybody who you felt nurtured
Yes,
or
of course.
loving, healthy way, right? It could be
Anyone.
It could be my grandma, but
Yeah.
it could be a baby, right? When the
Yes.
mother is nurturing the child and giving that motherly love,
Yes.
or even a dog or a pet,
Yes.
right? That gentle care, whatever that feels like, it's a feeling. It's an energy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's being given
Right.
through action, right?
Exactly.
So if I want to people feel that way around me, I have to become that, right?
Yes.
You know,
It's karma. You give out positive energy, you receive positive energy. You give
Yep.
out negative energy,
yin
you
and
have
the
negative
yang.
energy, right? So
Yeah.
if you think that people are negative, that's because you think they are negative, but that means you're negative.
and
right?
you have to change that negative energy into
Negative
positive
positive.
energy.
Exactly.
Or at least start with minimizing, because you don't just switch, right? You don't
Right.
just become positive. Oh, I'm positive and I'm happy. No, like
It's a gradual process.
from the moment you wake up,
Yes. Yes.
try to set your day first and just try to do it automatically. Today's going to be a good day, whether it may be through a prayer, a meditation, whatever. Just say how your day you want it to be. Imagine it if you have to. Because the moment you walk out of that door, life is gonna throw you some stuff, whether it may be traffic or like
some curveballs,
right.
some
It's gonna happen,
Right.
right? So it's inevitable of feeling stress or anxious or anger. Just try to manage it better.
I'm
Minimize it.
right, but think about it. What you said is it's a beautiful thing to think about it like that. In the morning, we usually say, I woke up at a particular time, right? You wake up at 6 or you wake up at 5 and you start getting to go to work or go to school, whatever your responsibilities are. But in reality, it almost seems like the day wakes you up. You don't wake up the day. You don't determine when the sun is going to rise or when the moon is going to rise. You basically are in the grips in the midst of the day, the cycle of the day. That's the gift. The gift is the day, because we don't manage that, right? We didn't.
That's interesting that you're going.
It's a fast no, but it's interesting, isn't it?
No, I know what you're going through. Yeah, it is a gift,
To
right?
be grateful, going back to being grateful for the gifts that we've received and being open to that, understanding that the day begins with grace, because you were given the day.
So, if I'm understanding what you're saying, and just to chime in,
Yes, please. This is about you.
when I say when you wake up, even if it's automatic or how you want to imagine, in other words, what my Mr. Hernandez or Dr. Hernandez that I would like to say is, in translation, you can just start off by saying, I am grateful to be alive, because that's a fact.
That's a
right?
fact. Yes.
I am grateful. Usually I'm grateful when it's sunny, because when it's raining all day,
It can be a little depressing.
maybe,
I agree.
yeah,
You have
but
seasonal affective disorder. It's not healthy.
But
Yeah.
yeah, even just be grateful to
But-
just like I have a job,
But when
you know,
it
source of
rains,
income.
the flowers are happy when it rains.
Yeah, just find the positive. There's
Sure.
got to be something, a solution to everything, a positive perspective to everything,
Right.
because it's there. You just got to look at it, focus on it.
Right. And every day we're given those cues. Every day, and especially people in our lives will start to appear that you realize, oh, that person is giving off positive vibes, positive energy that resonate with my energy. That's also very important, because that's actually very helpful for us, because we are a collective consciousness. We are a community. We don't live in isolation.
No, we're
Yeah.
not. I don't think we're meant to be in isolation that
We're
much.
social animals. We're meant to be around people, right? I mean, this is what makes our relationships meaningful, because it's other people. This is how we identify.
It's
who
what
we are.
strengthens the
It's
relationship.
what strengthens us, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing, to be able to have good relationships with coworkers and your peers and your colleagues at home. All of that resonates from within, because if you are feeling with this sense of gratitude and grace and you're feeling positive, you will start to see that everywhere.
You will start to notice it everywhere, because you're being that and you're practicing it. You're becoming like, you know, it's not easy, because there are going to be days where you're going to wake up a little bit low energy and like a little tired. And that's the moment where you should take the moment to isolate and recharge and make sure that your cup is good, right? Again, with the self relationship, with the self work, make sure that you're okay. And then once you are, you know, your cup is full, then you can pour, right? You can emanate the energy of,
Right.
like you said, like the positive.
You can
And then you
share.
start seeing the positive and becoming the positive and sharing that. But there are going to be days where there's going to be days where you're like, meh.
You feel blah.
I'm not all my hey, because
No,
that's reality,
No,
right?
that is reality. Of
It's a
course.
balance, again, with the balance.
Right. But there are people that you meet on particular days that may say to you exactly what you needed to hear at that very moment, and you're like, I really needed to hear those words right here, right
Yep.
now, today, that give you an uplift. That person may not know what you're going through. They just happen to give you a word of inspiration, a positive word. That always resonates. A negative word never gives you more life, right? But it does when you see someone that is positive, and they give you a word that's filled with hope, that things are going to be all right. Those things are really critical. That phrase that you just said, if things are going to be all right, I can tell you, it's very profound.
It didn't come from me. It came.
Came from Bob Marley.
You already know.
But believe it or not, that occurred to me in a very deep situation that I was in.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That one of the things that I was actually I had gone through a very deep loss talking about early trauma. I went through a very deep loss. My brother was killed when I was about 16 years old, and my mother said to me, go to this church. My brother Arsenio, who actually was deaf and mute, he was 23 years old.
By the way, much light to him.
Amazing.
Sending a lot of light to your brother.
He's for me, he was one of the most amazing young men I knew, and I admired him. He was an amazing athlete, good-looking guy, always looked sharp. It was amazing.
With the good-looking guy. Okay.
And he had just a lot of personality, and unfortunately, it was a situation that he was killed at the age of 23 in the Lower East Side. I was 15, 16 years old at that time. And out of that trauma, out of that pain and suffering, my mother said to me, I want you to go to St. Michael's Church in Union City, and I want you to go to this youth conference that's going on there. How she knew that was happening in the midst of losing her son, to this day, I couldn't understand it. But being a good son, and I said, no, of course, I will go. If that's going to make you happy, I'll definitely go. The priest that was given that youth conference was the same priest that had buried my brother the day before. Yeah. And in the midst of that, he was telling us how fragile life is. He was talking to a group of about 20 youth, like these are kids that I went to school with. And he was saying that life is so fragile that just yesterday, I buried a 23-year-old man. And he's looking right at me. I'm right in front of him. He didn't know that was my brother.
Wow.
And all I could think about in that moment, I was in such I was just really truly in a relaxed mode, and I was very calm. And the thought that came to me in that moment was, everything's gonna be all right.
You just had a spiritual intervention right there.
That moment changed the course of my life.
To what way?
Because it made me see I had to start seeking. I started to ask, what is the meaning of life? Mm-hmm. What are we doing here?
Very profound.
Yeah.
Very important, critical questions that we should ask ourselves at some point in our life.
Those are existential questions that we ask ourselves today. What is the meaning of my life? What am I doing here?
What do I want my life to look like?
What's my purpose? Am I a positive purpose? Am I a positive person? Am I a negative? What am I leaving? What am I doing to create a positive difference? To make a difference in my world and on the planet and in my family, in my community. That's what our life is about, truly.
Truly.
And that's the beauty of understanding that if you have this sense of seeking for spiritual matter, spiritual things, that will start to slowly reveal itself. And out of that experience, that trauma, came many graces. And this is exactly, I think, what shaped my life in seeking spiritual things in the midst of matter, to see what is the essence, what are we looking for, and to really see how to value people and relationships within the family, and to accept people for who they are. That's a tremendously powerful thing, because if you love someone, you love them as they are. You're not trying to change them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was a powerful thing that I think it goes back to what you just said right now. Things are going to be all right in these trials and tribulations and storms. And I love that metaphor that you gave of being on the ocean.
Right.
There are storms, but there's always the calm.
Yes. And you are a testimony of that. So, I mean, you could have seen it from a different, your interpretation of that experience could have been could have been totally different. Your life could have been totally different just by thinking the negative perspective of that experience that happened to you. We all go through traumatic experience.
Right.
But the key is how you perceive and interpret that very moment. Are you going to be resilient and think everything's going to be all right? Have that faith and just go in that path, or are you going to be and doesn't mean just because you had peace doesn't mean you weren't going through pain.
Of course. Right. No, I was.
Or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. There was deep suffering going on. Deep,
right.
Of course.
Right.
Soul deep suffering.
I'm sure
Yes.
you cried.
It was a devastation to everyone.
Right. So yes, it's not like it was all I was peaceful and I am just no, you went through it. Right?
No, yeah. I mean, imagine a mother losing a son, a father losing a son.
But that spiritual intervention, the sense of purpose, the spiritual system, right, of feeling that peace and shifting your perspective of everything is going to be all right and I'm going to act accordingly, then I become an example of that experience to happen to you who may... Another person, right, who is also 16, who loses his brother or mother at that age.
Mm-hmm.
You're an example of, hey, I was there and this is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my life. It's not perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect.
No.
But you have peace. You have, right, these things, right?
Right.
Versus taking the other route. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I could have reacted in anger. I would have fought for justice, right? And going after, try to kill somebody that, an eye for an eye attitude, right? To create more violence upon violence, which breeds more violence.
I mean, you can get justice in a healthy way.
Right, and which is exactly what we did. And this is really the beauty of that moment. And I share this with you because it's so, it resonates so much with early trauma and relationship. The mother of that person who killed my brother spoke to my mother. They called each other. She called my mother and asked for forgiveness and begged that nothing happened to her son because obviously she was afraid of retaliation. And my mother said to her, do not worry about that because nothing will happen to your son, because if something happens to your son, now you have two grieving mothers. Then how is that beneficial? So when she told me that was another affirmation of the power of grace, because she showed me what spirituality is about.
And compassion.
Understanding.
Which is so hard. Let me tell you,
wow.
We are saying these words as if it was a piece of cake. Because let me tell you, it's so easy to be angry. It's so easy to be sad. It's so easy, all the negative.
Right.
Because it's primary emotions.
Right.
But try compassion when you really want to be angry. Sometimes it's hard to be.
It's easier to be angry.
Right.
It's right on the surface. It's like right there, just waiting for you to just respond. And most of us do. We are angry.
But the more you practice compassion, then the easier it gets, just like in anything, like in the gym, right? The more you practice something, the better you get at it, whether maybe through sports or academics so the more you practice compassion,
and it
then it doesn't become that hard.
No, but it's true. But it's also a matter of discipline.
Discipline, practice.
Right?
Yeah.
And the root word of discipline is to be a disciple of.
Really? I'm having a moment right now. I didn't know that. I know you want to laugh.
To be a disciple.
Sorry, but I seriously didn't know that.
That's good. To be a disciple.
That's good. See, we all learned something new, and I'm not ashamed of it.
No, this is a learning process. We're learning as we speak.
Great.
But that's the beauty of discipline, is that you become the disciple of whatever you're following. Whether you're going to train for whatever it is,
whatever you're following, whether it may be a thought, a thing,
spiritual training, and that's discipline. So you're becoming a disciple of that, and that's what it is about.
The disciple of love.
The disciple of love.
Oh,
I love that.
like relationships.
That's really good.
Yeah, but for real, the disciple. No, honestly, you asked me where I'm at in my healing process again because I want to become that, the disciple of love, the disciple of peace. I'm really huge on peace right now, more than love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, peace is a manifestation of love.
Exactly. So, but I'm just really big on the peace.
Inner peace.
mental peace,
Inner peace, spiritual peace.
peace in all the
Emotional.
sense.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I really believe that by you focusing on that and cultivating that is like good soil. You're throwing good water with good sun.
Seriously, you want to see my picture of peace?
Yes. Other than peace.
Picture this, okay? My piece looks like
Uh-huh.
one of those wooden cabañas in Puerto Rico.
Like a beautiful cabin in the woods.
Yeah, like a
Right.
wooden house.
A
It's not
wooden-
like a cabin,
Right, it's
but
a wooden house.
it's
with
a wooden
With
house
a working chimney.
with no chimney.
Oh, no chimney. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a
Okay.
cabin, but you know what wooden house I'm talking about, like
like a more
DR style,
okay,
like
a
Puerto
more
Rican style, like back in the
simple-
day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
wow.
yeah, my Boricuas know.
And the
With
Dominicans too.
yeah. And a balcony, right?
That's
So I'm
beautiful.
waking up in the morning. You got the palm trees, a lot of shadow because of the trees, like
Yes, a
vegetation,
beautiful
a lot of
breeze.
oxygen, right? So I
Natural
wake up
flow.
natural.
A river running behind you.
My piece looks like black coffee in the morning. Seriously, but this is cold already. But a coffee in the morning and just enjoy.
That
Probably
is-
meditate too.
That is
that
awesome.
would be peace for that's what peace looks like to me in the future.
And if you keep visualizing that, you will achieve that. It will happen. You are
Yeah.
manifesting it already.
Law of attraction. Yeah.
Disciples of love. I like that.
Disciples of peace.
I love that.
Seriously.
That's awesome. Are there any words?
Was that good enough? Like
This
this
is
was an
fantastic.
amazing conversation.
Isn't it cool?
Wasn't it natural?
Completely. No, this
Yeah.
is really, really good.
I hope this benefits anybody out there. Seriously. Yeah. We don't know it all, but through experience, I guess this is the best that I can give you.
And this is great. I appreciate you 100%, 1,000% for coming,
Thank
having
you.
the
You
courage to come
too.
in to speak to us, to speak to those who are listening. We really appreciate your time. And this is a really valuable lesson that we are learning from each other. I learned from you. You're learning from me.
I'm still learning.
We are all in evolution.
I'm
We're
still
all-
learning.
And it's to be lifelong learners, which is the beauty of this process. This process,
Life is a school.
life is the school, yes, and we're learning all along the way, and we're learning from everyone, right? Not those who are more evolved or those. No, we're learning for everyone that we encounter. So you have impacted my life, honestly, in a very positive way.
Great.
Which you have.
Likewise.
It's fantastic. So it's really good that we're learning from each other along the way, and that's the beauty of this process. So I thank you again for having the courage to come out and talk to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to all of those who are listening, we thank you also as well for the privilege of your time. And until we meet again, somewhere in time, I'm Luis Hernandez, and this is
Miss Chaparro, Amanda Chaparro.
Thank
Or
you.
Gitana.
Gitana.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless and be well. Peace.